some of the other sellers in the audience that I would make this entertaining even for them, which is hard. So just so you guys know, MiQ is a marketing intelligence company, and we deliver outcomes through programmatic media and analytics solutions. What does marketing intelligence mean? Basically, all the data that you guys sit on top of, we can action that and turn it into outcomes for you guys as a brand. That's pretty much the sales pitch of the entire presentation. So I've decided to give you guys hopefully something really engaging about what we are and how we work and some of the thoughts that we have around specifically for D2C. In any presentation I do, I like to tell people where we're going, and I like to make sure that you guys understand when we walk out of this room, hopefully a couple things that you'll be able to know. One of the things that you guys should know about me is I'm a D2C brand. My wife owns a child's clothing company. I'm her marketing arm, so my couch is my desk. I know a lot about the challenges of D2C brands. And I think a couple of the things we want you guys to take away is the first one is how do you grow beyond Facebook and Google? I used to work at Adaptly, which is a big FMP. Facebook and Google are the two biggest growth mechanisms any D2C brand faces or uses. I think they're incredible platforms, but there has to be growth beyond those platforms, so that's something we're going to talk about in this presentation. What is the value in connected data? A lot of the brands that we talk to, especially D2C brands, their data and the information they have about their brand is growing faster than their actual business. So they have to think about how to use that data in a more effective way. That's the second thing I want you guys to walk away with. And then the third one is thinking about your technology. Is it customized for your brand? And are you differentiating yourself in an effective way? Cool? So those are 3 takeaways. Hopefully at the end of the presentation you'll know. If that doesn't seem interesting, feel free to leave. If any of that seems interesting, great. But I want to start with a story. My morning starts not with a cup of coffee on the side of my bed, as probably none of yours do. It starts with children jumping on me getting out my phone, checking apps, looking at the weather, talking to Alexa, the usual. And then I commute. Of course, there's trying to wrangle my kids into clothes, but I commute. I listen to Spotify. I check Instagram. I do all the things like the crossword. I'm a big New York Times crossword guy. I do that on the L. I live in Chicago, by the way, so that's hence the L. So those are the types of data signals I start to produce, right? I go to work. I use the internet, obviously. I look at URLs, communicate, Slack, et cetera. Maybe I check Facebook. Maybe I obviously Google everything, like how to be a manager, watch a couple YouTube videos, things like that. I go to lunch. Most of you hopefully don't have to eat with annoying lunch reps like me. I love taking people out to lunch. I think it's fun. But I go out to lunch. I travel. My location changes. I might take an Uber. Data signals, data signals, data signals. Sometimes I go home after lunch. I'm just kidding. I take a Lyft or an Uber back. I use apps. I commute throughout the city. These are important things that I have to do during my day. And these data signals continue throughout the day. I go home. My wife and I try to answer what do we want to eat for the day. We look at recipe sites. We look at how to cook sites, all those types of things. Again, all the output is data on a multitude of channels. I actually made dinner the other night. My wife Instagrammed it. That was like a relationship highlight for me because it meant that I'd actually cooked something that she felt like sharing with her friends. I Google parenting tips all the time. If you don't, you're a liar if you're a parent. For me, this is a really important time in my day. It's the day in between dinner and bed where I'm consuming a ton of information on the internet to help me. This is really like my downtime. I think about my kids a lot during this time, and I'm focused on parenting. That would be my son up top, and that would be my daughter down below. She's the troublemaker, or the anti-hero for those literarians out there. And then I work. After the kids go to bed, my wife puts me to work on her brand. I think about the challenges probably that you guys think about as D2C brands. I do everything else she tells me to do on the internet. And then we have the age-old question. Oh, no. What happened there? The age-old question, which is, which Fire documentary are we going to watch? We're cord cutters, so that's a big decision. Are we going to go to Hulu? Are we going to go to Netflix? Are we going to watch it upstairs? Are we going to watch it downstairs? Are we going to use our Roku? Are we going to use the Xbox because I was playing a game before? Whatever. Those are decisions we have to make. The intimate moment in bed, checking Instagram, sharing photos, that type of thing. So that's a typical day, right? So the reason why I tell that story is because a lot of us think about those moments, and we think as brands, our consumers don't live in these silos, and it's important to think about data connectivity. So everybody's day involves waking up and going to bed. And the platforms that are most bought by D2C brands, every brand I talk to as a D2C brand and as someone who personally has done this before, so this is my professional and my personal life, these two platforms, Facebook and Instagram, are so powerful. You guys know this. This is how you guys all get going. It's important. Google offers a lot of search results. They drive you to traffic. It's a good conversion capture mechanism. It's important. But that's not the whole user's day. There are all these other signals. They listen to Spotify. They use mobile applications that off-put data into SDKs. There is, let's call it connected TV. Maybe they watch ESPN in the morning. They watch the Fire documentary at night. And these data signals happen throughout the day from all of these different channels. And these different channels start to add up. Like, what types of apps are they using? What types of videos are they consuming? What types of web properties are they going to on the web? Is it digital out of home? Is it regular out of home? All of these things start to add up to paint a little bit of a picture of a user. So when we're thinking about the connectivity of data, we have to think about what you guys can get out of it, like what kind of extraction of that data and what can be valuable for D2C brands to use inside your marketing funnel. And whenever you're thinking about the amount of something, you have to give the graph scale. So that's why I put the y-axis on here. And when you think about Facebook and Instagram, one of the things that kind of gets frustrating sometimes is you don't get a lot of data out. You do get some, like reporting. It maybe makes your CRM more rich. And I'm sorry if they're Facebook people in the audience. I love Facebook, like I said. But you start to take out and you start to realize you don't get a lot of data back. You don't get a lot of intelligence back. You understand how Facebook works for your brand, but you don't understand a lot about your consumer. But when you look at these other channels, if you could connect that data and you could start to figure out who users are, that would be really valuable. And to do that, you can. Like, companies like us normalize that data and give D2C brands a holistic picture of their consumer. And when you start to look at it like this, it starts to look like something else we know, which is a barcode. You can, in a compliant way, start to think about users as unique. Like, these are people that are my customers. They're not my customers. And all of us have different consumption patterns. We all have different types of inventory that we make or consume. We all have different types of targeting buckets that we fall into. I made this slide. That's why all the bars don't line up. It wasn't really marketing approved, but I didn't have time to get that through our design department, so sorry. But the point here is that every user is unique, and we're all consuming vast amounts of different inventory that needs to be connected so that you guys can continue to grow into the next level. So why does that matter? Why does data connectivity matter? It helps you guys tell better stories. If you can sequence users across all these different channels through a centralized partner, it's going to give you a better conversation with the user. It's not just touch points on the major platforms. You can learn about consumers and not inventory. You can run multi-channel campaigns for more impact, and you can future-proof your inventory. What I mean by the last one is any inventory in the future is going to be traded programmatically. Programmatic doesn't just mean display media. It's actually a way of buying, and it's auction-based pricing. So any inventory in the future is going to be auction-based. So if you understand how that works now, and in the future, everything else is going to be bought that way. How does connectivity actually help D2C brands or smaller brands take on the big guys? We ran a really cool campaign. I'm going to give you guys a proof point. This isn't like a salesy proof point. It's just to prove that data connectivity works. SF Kids is a charity in San Francisco. They wanted to run a campaign against big tobacco, against the Juul pens and all those types of things. They had 6x less budget than the government or the PACs that were trying to spend for big tobacco. And what we saw is when they ran TV only, they had a 0.5% registration rate. When we ran digital only, they had 0.84% or 0.84. And then when we ran TV plus digital and we connected that story, we told a sequence story, they had a 1.1% increase in registrations, which is a 93% difference. We have a ton of these use cases across D2C brands about how running multi-channel campaigns exponentially increases performance because of data connectivity and because things like that matter. The outcome, victory for the little guy. I just like the picture. It kind of looks like my son. Okay, this is the main thing I wanted to get to in the presentation, incrementality. We're all familiar with the growth curve. It specifically doesn't have increments of time or growth because it could be over 10 years, over 100 years. It's probably a lot of the things that you guys think about as D2C brands that are important. And my guess is that the majority of the people in this room sit somewhere in this section. You're either waiting for your exponential growth, you're in the middle of it and you're thinking about what comes next, or maybe you're starting to plateau and you think, okay, where are these next users going to come from? And I think that's something I think a lot about, something we think a lot about as a company. And really what we offer is like, okay, beyond Facebook and Google, what's out there in the world? And I think that there's so many different channels and so many different pieces of inventory that you can keep going on this trajectory. Eventually this plateaus out or you hit a bump there. But this little cone there, I dub that the cone of innovation. Like you have to do something different so that your brand doesn't plateau. And this isn't just D2C brands, and it's not just smaller brands. This happens to every major brand. I talked with a huge brand the other day in Pennsylvania that spends $70 million on Facebook, and the guy's like, I'm hitting everyone I want to hit, but I'm not getting the amount of engagement I want to get. So thinking about innovation is important on what we want to do. And that's even more important when you think about your return on investment. Everybody knows that certain conversions and certain inventory types are getting more expensive, and as they get more expensive over time, they become less valuable to you as a brand. And if you don't change and you don't innovate, there's another cone there. I call that the cone of update your LinkedIn, because you're probably going to have to find a new job as a marketer, because when you don't return, it's hard to stay competitive. So looking and thinking about innovation and different inventory types and different inventory sources as a way to gain incrementality is something that we help a lot of brands with. So how do programmatic channels create step change? It's funny, like people used to talk about social as like the challenger inventory type, and now people are talking about programmatic as like the inventory challenger type. But I think it's important to know how programmatic creates step change. Reach and unique reach are not equal. How many people in here actually use Facebook on a daily basis outside of Messenger? Show of hands. That number would have been a lot different a year ago, right? Instagram, I would assume, would be like a way higher number, right? So just think about that. We're the target brand for a target person for a lot of D2C brands, and we're not on Facebook. We're not on Instagram as much anymore. But we are using the open web. We do use Google for search results. We go to URLs. We collect things. So that's important. Programmatic is applicable outside of walled gardens. The information that you collect is applicable outside to other channels. Like what we do in display, we can help brands use inside digital out of home and on television. What they do in television can be applied vice versa. And also a lot of the challenges can be extrapolated into business decisions, like what products to build, what innovation to seek in your brand and things like that. And again, it's future-proof. I just want to keep touting that, because in the future, programmatic channels are going to continue to create this step change. There's another use case. For the sake of time, I'm not going to get too much into this, but we talked to a huge D2C cosmetic brand. They specialize in young teen cosmetics. They were running only social. And we said, look, we'll give you a performance guarantee. We just want you to try programmatic. And what they saw, and the part that I really want to focus on, is that bottom line is like 380 incremental conversions throughout a week. Those are 380 new customers that they didn't even know existed because there was incremental. And I think that's a huge win for D2C brands when you can get incrementality and new users. All right, and then the last piece, I don't know what's going on here. The last piece is customization. This is fun. Okay, every picture on this slide, with the exception of this one, which was the impetus for this slide, was taken within a 1 minute thing. Are any of these brands really standing out? You have to ask yourself, right? It's like, if you're a D2C brand, is your brand customized in this fashion? So then we went around the office. Someone came back from lunch, like, pull up your Instagram. We've got a presentation we need to do. So we looked at women's shoes. We saw the same thing. These were all taken within a 1 minute session. And it started to get us to think, like, does this happen a lot on social? Like, is your brand able to customize itself and its message? And I know some of these brands might be in here. This isn't a knock on the strategy. Like, it's exactly what we do with my wife's brand at home. It's exactly what MiQ does with our brand inside Instagram. It's not wrong. It's just like, is it and are you able to customize? And then we looked at Facebook. This is really interesting because I think one of the brands up here is in this room, and the person whose feed this is also in the room. And there's two things interesting about this. This all happened within like 2 or 3 minutes in their Facebook feed. Each one of these meal box companies targeted the same user, but one of these companies already has the user. So like one of these companies has already captured this user, and it's really interesting because is that company doing a good job with their CRM management? There's a lot of questions to be asked about operationally there, but also are these other companies wasting money? You know, or are they trying to conquest? So if you want to know who it is, he's sitting right there. Matt, raise your hand. That's the user. He uses one of the brands up here, so you guys can corner him later. So please do that because he's a fun guy anyway. So my point is that what really can be customized outside of programmatic and digital display? What can you really change inside the main environments that most people use to get up to speed? And that's really price, targeting, or creative. Like you can change one of those 3 things to generate better results. Whereas in programmable environments and in things that have more customizability, you can change way more. You can demand to optimize towards your KPIs. You can demand to change the inventory. You can use algorithms. You can change your rationality, attribute. All these things become more customizable to you because they're not walled gardens and they're not siloed pieces of inventory. Just a quick example. We had a user come to us and say, we don't care about CPA, or a customer come to us and say, we don't care about CPA. We care about cost per passenger. They were an airline. So we did it. We gathered all their data intelligence, their marketing intelligence, all their ad server logs, and we came up and we found that advanced bookers are 2 times more valuable than last-minute travelers. Like, there's an insight. You probably couldn't have gotten that from another inventory source. So then we customized all of their programmatic buys. And what you see there is the actual customization where we said, okay, if it's an advanced booker, this is how we want to bring down the bids across all inventory types, across programmatic out-of-home, across Spotify, across Pandora, across anything that's traded on the open web. So we're able to make like really intelligent decisions and customize their business based on their KPIs for them. And the result was we drove 2x more revenue and we were 60% more efficient. Okay. Now imagine doing that across every piece of auctionable inventory in the world. And that's kind of what we started to help brands do. So this is if someone's watching home, if they're at home, they're watching TV and they're getting OTT commercials, being able to customize your business to reach them. If your major competitors or the giants in your space are spending money on these big, or your retailers are spending money big on these channels, how can you dovetail into that? And that's something we specialize in. I guess that's the sales pitch, actually, thinking back on it. And then there's 2 ways that most companies work with us, just so you know, performance guarantees and a data audit. I'm not going to get into what those are right now. I'm sure you can guess what the first one is. It's like, give us any KPI in your business and we'll hit it. Doesn't matter if it's a media KPI or not. And then data audit is just, we look at all of your data, tell you what you have, and tell you what we think would be valuable for your marketing stack. I wanted to leave time for questions. I had to fly through that. We prepared for 45 minutes, but I didn't want to bore you guys, and everyone wants to eat breakfast. So are there any questions that people want to ask? No? None? Was that useless? You can be totally honest. Was it a good breakfast kickoff? Jen, we talked last night. All right, thanks, Jen. Guys, one other thing before I forget. We are sponsoring tomorrow's dinner. It's a Western theme. I'm supposed to be told that you got a flask from us, which is scary, very scary. The liability on that's high. There will be a surprise that we'll go into that. So I was supposed to plug dinner. Please show up because we're paying for it. So that'd be good. All right, cool. Thank you.